Okay, my name is Howard Eber, and I am an alcoholic, a recovered alcoholic. We're working with others right now. We have done a lot of work to get to this point, which is quite an understatement. We have made our amends. And at the same time that we make our amends, Bill tells us that we begin this way of living, which is 10, 11, and 12. And the end of the previous chapter tells us that the next chapter, chapter 7, working with others, is all about step 12. And while that is accurate, it's not quite entirely accurate, because while chapter 7 is all about step 12, it's only about 1/3 of step 12. Step 12 is made up of three parts: a promise, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, the greatest promise we make to the newcomer. But nothing in life is free. So in the second part of the 12th step, we're being charged. There's the promise in the first part and the charge in the second part. And the charge is to tell other people of our experience and to help them have the same. That's our responsibility. That's not an option. That's not something we do in our spare time. That is a requirement. And we start doing that as we're working on our amends. And the third part of the 12th step is the greatest challenge of all: to practice these principles, these steps in all of our affairs. And if you're wondering where that is in the book, because there really isn't a chapter that's called Practice These Principles, hang around for a couple of weeks. We're going to have some fun doing a flyover of the next few chapters, and I'll show you exactly where Bill has outlined how to practice these principles, hidden in lots of little places in wives and family and vision for you and employers. So hang around, be part of it. All right, we are, as I said, we're in working with others. We're on page 94. Um, just by way of catching up, a lot of stuff in the first part of this chapter is dated. It just doesn't apply the way it used to when the book was written. It tells you, you need to work with people, but how do you find people? There aren't meetings everywhere. So they tell you to go to a family member, or go to a physician, or go to a priest. Or I don't think too many of those people will cooperate today. Confidentiality being what it is, and this being a litigious society, I don't think too many people are going to be handing you names and phone numbers. But today, go to a meeting. Please go to a meeting. There are people dying from this disease, languishing at the back of every meeting you go to. And we're letting it happen because we're not getting to those people soon enough and letting them know this is a race. Anyone who tells you this isn't a race, get as far away from that person as you can. It is definitely a race. That window of opportunity, when the obsession is going to come back, we don't know when that is. Could be a day, could be a week, could be a year, who knows? The point is, we need to get busy early to get ready before that happens. um I lost my train of thought. In any case, um uh oh so go to a meeting. Get somebody at the back of the meeting and make sure that they know this is a life and death matter. And the chapter begins with, besides telling us um, who to go to, he points out a few things. We have a list of directions that we made up for how to work with others. Once you have obtained that prospect, that protege, what do you do with that person? And that stuff is still very much the same today as it was back then. The culture might have changed a little bit, but the essence of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is working with others, intensive working one-on-one with others, remains unchanged. It's the foundation of our program, and it hasn't changed one bit. So the book begins to tell us, once you have that prospect, what do you do? What do you say to that person? How do you proceed? It's a daunting task, and if you've never done it before and you don't know how to do it, um, I could see why you run away from the responsibility of doing it, but there's no need for that because there are instructions, very carefully delineated directions in this chapter in particular about how to work with other people. It starts on the first page, on page 89. It tells us right up front, do not set out as an evangelist or a reformer. That's the first direction. Don't preach. Don't try and sell anything to them. And the second thing, find out all you can about him or her. Um, one of the myths in modern AA is telling the newcomer to shut up and listen, or take the cotton out of your mouth and put it out of your ears and put it in your mouth. That's horrible, terrible, terrible. I wouldn't say to somebody I love, I would never say shut up. I just wouldn't do that. And if we want the newcomer to feel welcome, why would we do something like that? Plus, the book, and you'll see as we go through a few of these first few directions, is filled with us asking questions. It's essential that we get information from that prospect. So if we're telling the guy, shut up and listen, we're not going to get the information that we need. And remember, we are in control of the discourse. He's not going to take the conversation wherever he likes. We're controlling it, but we have to lead him in certain directions. So we ask certain questions, like the first question that we ask on the top of page 890, when Bill says, find out all you can about him. What we need to know first and foremost, you want to quit? You want to stop using? That's what we need to know. I don't need to know where you were raised, where you're religiously, we'll get into any of that stuff later. Right now, do you want to stop? The assumption, and again, when this was written, here's one of those dated things. You were being called into somebody's home to talk to a family member generally who's having a problem, and they may not really want to see you. But in most cases today, we're running into prospects at meetings. So you could assume pretty safely that they do want to quit. They're there for a reason like that. But we still have to ask it. We want to hear them say those words. So again, if there's cotton in your mouth, you're not going to be able to say them. So the first thing we do is we find out all we can about the newcomer. And again, do you want to stop? That's all I need to know right away. The next thing Bill tells us is get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition and his religious leanings. You'll need this information, and as Bill says, to put yourself in his place to see how you would like to be approached if the tables were turned. So this is where we start asking questions about the background. That's relevant. That's relevant here. Where you went to school, how many brothers and sisters. Or it's not relevant at this time to what we're talking about. We just need to have a general idea of the seriousness of his condition, his religious leanings, his problems, his backgrounds, etc. And then on page 90, in the middle, it tells us something that's also another myth exploded, which is don't talk to him when he's very drunk. Too often today, we leave off that word very. You tell people, no, don't talk to the guy or your prospect if he's drunk. Come back next time. Well, I don't know about you, but as an active alcoholic and an addict, I was high to some capacity every minute of every day. And if I wasn't, all I was thinking of was ways and means to get and use more. So if you're waiting for that person to not be under the influence to some extent, it's silly. But don't talk to him when he's stupid drunk. If Ebby Thatcher would have taken that advice and not talked to Bill because Bill was drinking from the moment he walked in, we wouldn't be here today. But Bill was talking and for hours was making sense to some degree. He wasn't nutty. He wasn't out of his head. He wasn't stupid drunk. So the point is, don't talk to the prospect when they are very drunk. They're not going to remember it. They're just not going to remember you even had the conversation. Then continuing on page 91, paragraph 3, Bill tells us, see the man alone if possible. Now, we're not talking about you going into the situation alone. You can do that. I like to suggest that you bring with you a newcomer, one of your prospects. Let them see how it's done. Let them experience it. So bring someone with you, but this is not referring to that. This is talking about the family. Don't have the family hovering around you when you're talking to them. This whole page talks about it over and over and over again. When he says, see your man alone, we're talking about without family members present. And he said, at first, engage in general conversation. And on the direction sheet, I made a note. I said, take note of the environment. If you're in his home, look around. If you're sitting in the back of a meeting with the guy, has he got a team hat on? Does he have a concert t-shirt on? Let's ask questions so we can draw some information out of the guy to let him talk about some of the things that he's interested in. I saw you got a real nice Mustang when you pulled up here today. You prefer those cars? Get him talking a little bit about this. But again, don't get too long into it. You got to pull him back or her back so you're controlling the conversation. And then number 6 is Bill tells us, and this is on page 91, also 91.3. After a while, turn to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. Don't put the cotton in the mouth. Not going to work. Encourage him to do so. You'll thus get a better idea of how to proceed. If he's not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career. This is the time for the war stories. This is the time for telling those stories. So tell him about your drinking, quote, career up until the time you quit. We mentioned nothing about recovery. We mentioned nothing about a higher power. We are talking about the dis-ease part of our ism. Talk about your drinking career up until the time you quit. And Bill mentions, be careful not to moralize or lecture. Moralize to me means speaking in terms of black and white, good and bad. Like I'm telling the story that I did, and I may preface it by saying, I know this was wrong, and I know this was this, and I know it was bad, but don't editorialize. Just speak the facts. Just speak your truth. This is what I did. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not moral. It's not immoral. It's my truth. That's all. And don't lecture. And we all know what that's like. You know, most of us, up until the time we came into recovery, were dealing with people up here who were talking down to us, whether it was judges or policemen or doctors or parents. It was always someone up here saying, do this, or you got to do that. Or when they came in here, all of a sudden that changed. Nobody is up here. There's no lectures going on here. You know the expression, the only time we look down on another alcoholic is when we lean over to pick them up. So with us here at AA, it's this. It's eye to eye. Nobody is speaking down to anybody else. We are all on a level playing field. And then number 7 is when he sees you know all about the drinking game, describe yourself as an alcoholic. So I'm telling this picture, telling the story of my drinking career, my drugging career. And then I'm kind of holding up the picture I just painted and saying, you see this picture? This picture is called an alcoholic. That's what this is. I am an alcoholic. And I just described to you what that means. Now I'm going to get a little deeper into what the term means. I've described to you the habit. So maybe you'll begin to think, gee, I'm just like that guy. Maybe I am too. But the point is, describe yourself, not him. Tell him how baffled you are, how you finally learned that you were sick, not weak, not immoral, not bad. You were sick. I have an actual physical malady. We're getting into what Dr. Silkworth did with Bill. Told him what was wrong with him. He's not a bad person. He has an actual physical malady, a mental obsession, and a spiritual deficiency. So tell him how baffled you are when you learn that you are sick. Give him accounts of the struggles you made to stop. Show him the mental twist, the obsession. Give him examples of that obsession that leads to the first drink, that leads to that craving. The craving can't take over if we don't take the first drink. And we take that first drink because we tell ourselves a lie. We tell ourselves this time it'll be different. So I'm defining these terms as I go along. I'm talking about an obsession, and I may even define it. An obsession is a thought which overcomes all thoughts to the contrary. And once I act on that lie and I put it in me, it's not up to me anymore. The physical craving takes over. I have an actual allergic reaction to these chemicals. And I'll define the allergy for him. It is an abnormal reaction to any food, substance, or chemical. Abnormal just means it's not your typical, it's not average. Most people have a few lines, a few hits, a few drinks, a few whatever, and you ask them for if they want more, and at some point they're going to say, no, no, thank you. If I do a little bit more, I'm going to get sick, or I got to drive, so I got to take it easy, or they start saying some very, very strange things like, I don't need any more. I'm right where I want to be. Well, I always drank with the expectation of arriving where I want to be in that promised land, but it was always just a few lines, a few drinks, a few hits away from where I was now. So we're telling him about these things. And then number 9 is on page 92. If you're satisfied that he is a real alcoholic, there's another myth we've just blown up that we're not supposed to decide if the person is an alcoholic. Well, if I'm going to spend an, an incredible amount of time with you, days, nights, whatever, the rest of our lives working on these things, I want to make sure you're really an alcoholic. So I need to be aware of that. I need to know about that. Show them from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding the first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. Every time I pick it up, I know it's going to happen. I have this allergic, abnormal reaction. And while sometimes I'm able to say, no, no, I can't do it, can't do it this time, there are times that that doesn't hold up and gets blown away by the obsession, the thought that's so strong that this time it'll be different, that I make the decision based on a lie, and the lie is that I can handle it. And once it's in me, there's no more choosing. It's not a choice anymore. The physical craving takes over. And we could actually talk about that. But be careful. Number 10 on this page is be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusions. And my suggestion is this would be a great time to pose the questions to your prospect that were posed to us on page 44. Remember on page 44 in We Agnostics, Bill mentions there's 2 statements that we made into questions. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. So that question becomes, have you been able to quit entirely on your own? Question number 2 is, do you have any control over the amount you take once you start? They're the 2 questions. You want to decide whether you may or may not be an alcoholic? Well, let him answer the same questions you answered. He's going to have to do it sooner or later when we go through the steps. So, Ash, this is a great time to pose that question to him. Where are we? We're on number 11 on your list, the directions list. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the conditions of mind and body that accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath, they are afraid to tell the alcoholic patient about the whole story of alcoholism because they don't offer a solution. They are afraid of sounding desperate and hopeless. Well, that's our objective. When we sit down with a newcomer, our job is to give that person a bad case of hopelessness, to disturb him greatly about the nature of this disease. And now we're getting real close to where we left off last week. Um, and again, doctors are hesitant to do that because they scare you and you ask, okay, doc, what do I do? They're going to write you a prescription for a Valium deficiency and tell you to see a shrink, but they don't have any answers. They don't have answers for us. We have the answers. So don't ever be afraid of disturbing. I heard the expression that our job is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Those people with time who are sitting in the back of the meeting editorializing about everybody at the meeting and saying if they really want my help, they'll ask me for it. Our job is to let that guy know he's killing people. He's killing people with that attitude. Disturb that guy to get him into action. If he's been sober a period of years, he's learned something. Let's find out what it is and put it to work. And where we are today, I think we're on page 94. Yep, 94. What was anything in here that I need to really point out? Tell them what happened to you. Oh, number 14 occurs in the middle of page 93, and it's not written in there anywhere. I've suggested it. Number 13 is tell them exactly what happened to you, right? Hopefully, what happens here is he has already asked you the $1,000,000 question. What happened to you? Tell him how baffled you were, but get him to add on the top of page 93. Let him ask you what happened to you. There's the $1,000,000 question. And the answer to that is not, I went to 90 meetings at 90 days. I made coffee. I took commitments. No. What happened to me is I accessed a power greater than myself that was able to do for me what I could never do for myself. That power made every one of those other things possible. Without that, nothing is possible. With it, everything is. So what I did is I accessed that power and established a relationship with that power. Stress the spiritual feature freely. Maybe what you need to do is define the difference between religion and spirituality. If you're like me, people talking about God, all I thought about was organized religion, and I didn't want to have any part of it. I just didn't want to hear about that. But when it was explained to me 24 years into recovery, I wish somebody would have said this to me when I first came in. But 24 years after coming in, somebody explained to me that religion is about a set of discipline, about a set of practices. You want to be part of our club and worship our invisible higher power, then this is what you have to do. You have to pray like this, eat like this, dress like this, stand like this. These are the guidelines. These are the tenets of those religions. Spirituality is just a set of disciplines. You have to have a discipline for God. You figure it out. You name that entity. You have to have an idea of prayer and meditation. Again, your definition. That's all you need to know. So what I'd like to do is after the question is asked on page 93, how did you do it? And you told them how you do it. Suggest that he sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, write out a list of qualities, of traits you would like your higher power to have. I'm not asking you to write the difficulties you have with the God concept. I get it. You probably have some of those. Please put them aside, whether you have them or not, and just write out a list of traits Create your own higher power. And now, once you do that, you now have in black and white what you need to begin to move towards establishing a relationship with that power. So start by having make that list. Remember on 93 paragraph 1, he reminds us to use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. We're not getting dogmatic with the guy. Everyday language. And here's where we left off, I believe, on page 94, was it? 94, paragraph 2,
You begin in paragraph 3.
right?
Yeah, your candidate. That's where we begin.
Okay. Let me go back a little bit before your candidate. At the top of page 94, Bill tells us what to do with the guy after we've gotten his list of traits, that we're not here to teach him about religion, that we're trying to help him. And page 94, paragraph 1, I'm going to suggest you highlight the whole paragraph. Make life easy. The whole paragraph is in yellow. And I'll wait a second while you do that. But it just saves time if we've highlighted it all now. And let's underline that first phrase. Outline the program of action. Outline the program of action. Just like we're about to do here, you may want to, next to that, write, see page 44 and 25. So keep your place here. Let's go to page 25 for a moment. Because on page 25, if you recall, what's on page 25 is what I like to call the AA brochure. You know, when you're going on vacation somewhere, you're going to go to Mexico, you get a brochure for what's in Mexico to see, where to go, where to eat, whatever. Well, this is the AA brochure. This is what to expect in AA, and it's on page 25. The paragraph begins with "there is a solution," but we're going to start on the third line up from the bottom of that paragraph. Here's where the brochure begins. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence with which we had not even dreamed. The great fact is just this and nothing less. We've had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, toward our fellows, toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. And let's go back a paragraph and point out to him some of the things we had to do. We were asked to do things we did not want to do. It says almost none of us liked the self-searching. So we're going to start to talk a little bit about basically the fourth step and the eighth step. The leveling of our pride, steps 1, 5, and 9. The confession of our shortcomings, steps 5, 6, and 7. So it's just giving them an idea in everyday language, outlining the program of action. Now let's go back to page 94 and see what Bill says about doing it here in this context. Outline the program of action, the steps. But we're not sitting down and saying, you know, step 1 says this and step 2 says that. We are outlining the program of action in everyday language. Explain how you made an underlined self-appraisal. Steps 4, 5, 6, and 7. All of those. That's all part of our self-appraisal. We were looking at the things in us that are blocking us from that power. If that power is now going to rule and control and dominate our lives, we need to know what's been doing it up until now. And I found that they were my angers, my fears, my sources of guilt and shame. Those are the things that were ruling and compelling me to do things in my life. It wasn't the alcohol or the drugs. It was the soul sickness It was the stuff that had accumulated on my soul that's blocking God from getting out. So tell him about the self-appraisal, steps 5, 6, 7, 4, how you straightened out your past, steps 8 and 9, and why you're now, please underline, endeavoring to be helpful to him, step 12. We're here to help him more than any, I'm sorry, we're here to help ourselves more than to help him. It's important that he realize that your attempt to pass this on to him plays a vital part in your own recovery. Step 12, vital once again means life-saving, life supporting. That's how important it is. Make it plain he's under no obligation to you, in that you only hope, and please underline, that he will try to help other alcoholics when he escapes his own difficulties. It's an interesting expression. Bill tells us to emphasize that you're going to try and help him until he escapes his own difficulties. What does that mean to me? It means we will love you until you learn to love somebody else. Not we'll love you until you learn to love yourself. This isn't narcissists anonymous. That's not why we come in here. We come in here obsessed with self. Remember way back in how it works? Selfish, self-centeredness is the root of our problems. Well, that's our problem. So we're going to help him until he begins to give a damn about somebody else. Make it plain he's not under no obligation to you. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that right. And let's underline, suggest how important it is that he place the welfare of other people ahead of his own. What does that sound like? Well, I'll tell you what it sounds like to me. It sounds like life has taken on new meaning. So right next to that suggests how important it is he placed the welfare of other people ahead of his own. I've written, see page 89, paragraph 2. And what you'll find on page 89, paragraph 2, and those of you who are new here, I hope I don't lose you. I do tend to jump around. I like to connect the dots all through this book. It's a great pastime, connecting the dots in the big book. But I hope I don't lose anyone. But the point being, when he says life, suggests how important it is he placed the welfare of other people ahead of his own, sounds like life has taken on new meaning. And if you look at page 89, paragraph 2, that's exactly what Bill says happens. Life will take on new meaning. Remember, this is the beginning of working with others. Life will begin to have new meaning, to watch people recover, see them help others, watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. So when Bill says, suggest that you stress how important it is that he placed the welfare of other people ahead of his own, that's what's going to happen. So let's go back to page 94, right in the middle of the page. Make it clear he's not under pressure. He doesn't need to see you again if he doesn't want to. You should not be offended if he wants to call it off. And please underline, for he has helped you more than you have helped him. Let's say you get that guy interested and he wants to go through with this thing, but he asks somebody else to sponsor him. Don't take that personally. You've done your job. Our job is to get that person off the bench and into the game. And if he chooses to play with another manager, that's fine. He's in the game. He's on the right track. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to get on my horse and ride off into the sunset and find the next person to work with, because that person is well on his way. At least I hope he is. Continuing. If your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, you have perhaps made a friend. Please underline this sentence. Maybe you have disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. And I'm going to suggest you circle that word disturbed, because that's our goal. That's our mission, is to disturb. That's our goal, to disturb them about the grave nature of alcoholism. If you look up disturb in a dictionary, I found it's defined as to unsettle, to make one uneasy. Is that not what we're doing? We are making them uneasy about their condition, so they will do something about it. Our job is to disturb him greatly about the nature of alcoholism and addiction. And remember, our job is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Continuing, this is all to the good. And please underline, the more hopeless he feels, the better. Because if he's hopeless, he may be more willing to listen. When we're at that point of desperation, when quicksand seems to surround us on all sides, that window of opportunity is about as wide as it's ever going to get. This is the time to get busy, because the willingness is at a max. He'll more likely to follow your suggestions. There it is. And after that, I've written, because willingness opens the door. Willingness opens the door, gets desperation and hopelessness out of the way. First sentence in the next paragraph is in pink because it's a promise. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all of the program. And I've changed one of those words in my book. I've changed the word may to will. Your candidate will give reasons why he need not follow all of the program. I don't think I've ever worked with anybody that didn't have some issue with something that we're trying to do, and why it doesn't pertain to them, or why they can't do that, or why this and why that. There's always something. Like Rosanna Dana's mother said, Rosanna Dana, it's always something. Remember that from Saturday Night Live? Okay, just showed my age. All right. He may rebel at the thought of a drastic cleaning, which requires discussion with other people. Please underline these three words. Do not contradict such views. Don't go issue by issue, toe to toe, nose to nose with this guy on this stuff. Don't contradict him. Tell him you once feel as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action.
Is this the next direction?
What's that?
Is this the next direction?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Kathy's right. That's direction number 19.
Do not contradict such views.
Yeah, number 18 was disturb him about the nature of alcoholism. That's in the previous paragraph. And here we are in number 19. Tell him you once feel as he did, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. And on your first visit, please remember, we're at this point in the conversation, we're at the first visit. And Bill is saying, on your first visit, tell him about, and please underline that first word, fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. About the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Maybe jump over to page 17 and look at all the different words that Bill says about how great our fellowship is. If you go to page 17, I'll just point out a few of the words. He says it's a fellowship that provides friendliness, understanding. It's indescribably wonderful. It gives camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy. These are the elements of our fellowship that make it attractive. These things provide the spirit of the fellowship. Andy, if you give me, I think it's number 2.
Incidentally, was there any more directions, or are we still on direction 19?
We're still on 19. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, no, not that one. Fellowship of the Spirit.
What's it called?
Fellowship of the Spirit. Um, that one.
You sure?
No, it's not in there. It's not in that. Let me see if I can grab it. While you're looking for it, hang on a sec. Give me a moment, because this I think is relatively important. So let me find it for you.
For a second.
Go ahead.
Got it.
Oh, you got it? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Back in there is a solution. We were told about the fellowship of the Spirit and the Spirit of the fellowship. Those are two different things. And when a newcomer comes in, you look on the left side of this illustration, the newcomer is surrounded by those of us who are part of the fellowship of the Spirit. We have found and are living in the solution. And we give that newcomer our experience, our strength, and our hope. We surround that guy or that gal, and we give them the enthusiasm. We give them the reason to go on and to try this. So maybe if we give them enough help, support, and direction, they'll begin to believe and then decide to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools we've laid at their feet. In other words, the 12 steps. And they work those 12 steps, and look what happens. They have a personality change sufficient to recover from this hopeless state of mind and body. In other words, they have now joined the fellowship of the Spirit, and it is incumbent upon them. It is now their job to provide the spirit of the fellowship for the newcomer. That atmosphere, that indescribably wonderful atmosphere. That's our job, is to create that atmosphere. That is the spirit of the fellowship. And it's our job, those of us who have joined the fellowship of the Spirit, to provide that atmosphere for the newcomer. So that's what we're talking about here. We're laying out the set of spiritual tools for his inspection. You can take that down, Andy. We're on the top of page 95, paragraph 1. Unless your friend, again, let me point something out. I'll go back to the previous page, 3 lines up from the bottom. Please underline first visit. Remember, this is our first chat with the guy. This is the first time we've sat down and talked to him about recovery. And I'll tell you why that's important in a second. He says, unless your friend wants to talk further about it, don't wear out your welcome. Give him a chance to think it over. If you stay, let him steer the conversation any direction he likes. Again, back in those days, you're sitting in the guy's living room or something. Today, you're sitting in the back of a meeting. You're sitting in the kitchen of a meeting. You're sitting in somebody's car. You're sitting at the local Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. You're talking to this guy out. You're not in his home anymore. Let him steer the conversation any direction he likes. Please highlight the next 4 lines. Sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he's likely to say you rushed him. I'm going to suggest you highlight and underline what we just read. This section, when taken out of context,
Is this
and
20? Sorry,
what's that?
20.
That's number 20. Yep. Thank you. Keep me on track. That's number 20 in our directions. Beginning with sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed and so on, to the end of the paragraph. But the point of what I just read is that sometimes people take that out of context. They rip it out of the book and they use it as a kind of a weapon to justify stuff like one step a year, take your time, don't rush, take it easy. See, it says that on the wall, take it easy, which they ripped out of another chapter, The Family Afterwards, which was meant to tell the family to
Easy
control
does
their expectations. Yeah,
it. Easy does it.
easy does it. Yep. So this is used as a. I had a sponsee. He had about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and he was in a meeting and he was talking about his fourth step that we were working on. And since this was back in the day of smoking meetings and we would take a cigarette break in the middle, somebody at the meeting who said he had 20 years of recovery took my guy aside and said, you're Howard is rushing you. You've got only 4 months. This is you're way ahead of yourself. You're gonna get yourself jammed up in things that you'll wind up drinking and drugging over this stuff. And he knew that that kid would say something to me, and he did. And I went over to the guy, and he was ready. He was armed for bear. He said, "Your own book says so." So I ran to my car and I got out my book and I pointed to this page and I said, "Is this what you're talking about?" And he said, "Yep, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It says that if you rush the man, it's a mistake." Well, first of all, it says if you rush the man, it's sometimes a mistake. Let's keep the words where they are, sometimes. But let's go back to the previous page. It says your first visit. This kid has 4 to 5 months sobriety. He's not on his first visit. He's on his, I don't know how many days in 4 months, could be 120 days. He's on a lot of days by now. This doesn't apply to that situation. When you tear it out of context, you can use it for anything you want. But when you put it back in context, Bill is just saying that at this point, at the first visit, you've loaded him up with a lot of things. And if he wants to chill till tomorrow, go ahead. But that's only the first visit. So let me continue reading. It says, if he has trouble later, he's likely to say you rushed him. So this knucklehead was telling my guy that Howard is rushing you. 4 months to get to the fourth step is far from rushing. I'm sorry. You will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for, and please underline, crusade or reform. Crusade is just temperance. You don't have too many temperance workers these days, but you did back then. And reform, again, is temperance. Again, we don't have that stuff today. And please highlight the rest of this paragraph. This is all part of number 20 on your directions list. Number 20, never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop, right? Like we said earlier, we don't look down on another alcoholic unless we're leaning over to pick him up. Lay out the simple kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Let's underline, show him how they worked for you. Let's underline, offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him if he wants to get well, you'll do anything to help. Let's underline that. If he wants to get well, you'll do anything to help. And P.S., if he doesn't want to get well, there's nothing you can do for that guy. And trying to convince him is not going to produce anything, but rubbing him the wrong way. That's a mistake for sure. So offer him friendship and fellowship. And at some point, if he decides he wants to get well, there's nothing I won't do for you, buddy. Next paragraph. begins the what we call the 5 ifs. IFS, the 5 ifs. And I think this is this, yeah, this is number 21. Contains the 5 ifs on your direction list. Let's count them. If, there's number 1. If he's interested in your solution, if, number 2, he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, let's highlight you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. His mind. I've got that underlined. His mind. And this is highlighted and underlined as well. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. So we have 2 ifs: if he's not interested, and if he expects you to act as a banker for his financial difficulties, as a marital counselor for his marriage problems, a vocational counselor for his job issues. That's not our job. Not any of those things. Continuing, if, here's the next if he is sincerely interested, you may want to underline those 2 words, sincerely interested. Sincerely just means genuinely, truthfully, honestly, seriously. If he seriously, genuinely, honestly, truthfully is interested and wants to see you again, let's underline, ask him to read this book in the interval. Now, above that, I've written doctor's opinion and first few chapters. You may want to have him pick, or pick for him, 4 stories out of the table of contents and have him read those 4 stories and ask the questions that are suggested at the beginning of the book. We were told in the beginning to ask those questions about, did this happen to me? Can I recover, etc.? Ask those questions. But for now, suggest that he read those first few chapters. Doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there's a solution, more about alcoholism. After doing that, let's highlight and underline, he must decide for himself. There's a must. That's circled in blue, whether he wants to go on. Let's highlight and underline, he should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. If, here's if number 4, if he is to find God, the desire must come from within. And number 5, the 5th if he thinks he can do the job in some other way or prefers some other spiritual approach, let's highlight, encourage him to follow his own conscience. Notice it says, if he thinks he can do the job some other way. Let's say, example, don't drink, go to meetings. I had this conversation with somebody else, bless you, somebody else in a meeting recently, and he was telling me all I had to do is not drink and go to meetings. And it sounds like you're talking about something entirely different. Notice it doesn't say if he is to quit drinking, but if he is to find God. That's what we're talking about. To find God. We have no monopoly on God. Please underline and highlight. We have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach that worked with us. An approach. We highlight approach references in blue in these parts. An approach is defined as a means of attaining a goal. That's what we're trying to do. But again, the last if on the top of that paragraph, note it doesn't say if he is to quit drinking. It says if he is to find God. That's the if. So we got 5 ifs. If he sincerely is interested, if he's not interested, if he expects you to act as a banker, if he's sincerely interested, if he is to find God, the desire must come from within. If he thinks he can do that job, finding God any other way, encourage him to follow his own conscience. I'm not going to get into a debate with him. You want to go to church every day and you go to synagogue and do all it. If that works for you, go right ahead. But what worked for me was after I tried everything else. The book tells me in the final analysis, that's where I'm going to find God, is deep down within me. That's where you'll find him as well. Deep down inside you, you'll find, whether you call it your conscience, a gut feeling, innate intelligence, that knot you get in your stomach when you're about to do the wrong thing. That's what we're talking about. We have no monopoly on this stuff. We just have an approach that worked for us because everything else failed. But point out, and let's underline, we alcoholics have much in common. And if you would like, in any case, to be friendly, let's underline those 3 words. Keep the door open. And let's underline, let it go at that. And incidentally, this is all number 21. Number 21 began paragraph 2 with, if he's not interested in your solution. And number 21 ends with the sentence I just read, let it go at that. Those 1, 2, 3 paragraphs are all direction number 21 on your list of directions. Let's see how much more we can get done here. Top of page 96, here's number 22. And number 22 takes in just about almost this whole paragraph. It begins with, do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Let's highlight that, and I've underlined the word at once, the words at once twice. And next to it, I've written, did you? Took me 24 years to finally go along with that. I didn't respond for 24 years. In 2 relapses, I wasn't responding very well. Search out another alcoholic and try again. Let's underline that. And search out another alcoholic is another way of saying approach. If you are sure, try again. You are sure to, and let's underline, find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. I can't tell you how many times in the course of the week I refer people I'm working with to this page who get so deeply involved in other people's recovery. They want it more than the other person does. They put more work into it than the other person does. And they're wasting time. When you spend time with somebody and you're trying to convince them to get sober, the person who desperately wants to hear what you have to say just went down the drain because you didn't have the time to talk to him because he was too busy. You were too busy with this knucklehead. And maybe you may have a good reason for working with the knucklehead. He may be related to you. Who knows what the reason is? But the point is, by spending all of this time with that person, we've got somebody who wants it and is not going to get it. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who, let's underline, cannot or will not work with you. We've been keeping track of these as we go along. I think this time we'll make up a handout on all of the cannot and will not references. There are only 2 types of people who don't recover, according to this book: the cannots and the will nots. The cannots, because they're still using. And even if it's not drinking, maybe they're taking the marijuana route or taking the Valium route or whatever it is they're doing. Maybe it's gambling or any number of things where our disease comes out sideways. But the point is they cannot recover because they're still in their addiction. And the will nots, those are the don't drink and go to meetings people. Those are the don't rush it, take it easy people. Those are the people who never get sober. So we'll make up a list of that before this cycle is done. I'm afraid I put it off long enough. But when he says we find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you, the point being here, you cannot carry the person. You can only carry the message. That's all. You are going to want it more than that guy does, and that's a shame because it's going to break your heart. But that person has to want it more than you do for him. Continuing, if you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. There's a reference to recover. We highlight those things in orange. And please highlight and underline this sentence. This is the last part of number 22, direction. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. To spend too much time on one situation is to deny someone the opportunity to live and be happy. And I'll finish the paragraph and then we'll wrap it up. One of our fellowship failed entirely on his first half dozen prospects. That's Bill Wilson. Shh, don't tell anyone. It's Bill. He often says if he had continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. You all know the story. Bill was not getting through to people. He was working with people on the Bowery. He was walking up to drunks in the streets in Manhattan and trying to tell them about his spiritual solution, and they didn't want to hear it. They just wanted a few bucks or something from him, but they weren't interested in hearing the solution. And Bill supposedly went to Lois and said, look, it's just not working. This thing I got here, it's nobody's staying sober. And she said, yeah, somebody is. You are, Bill. Why don't you go talk to Dr. Silkworth and see what he thinks of the way you're doing things? And Bill went to Silky, and Silky told him, you're doing it backwards. You can't beat them over the head with the solution until you've gotten them to ask you to do so. So you've got an advantage over me. When I told you about the allergy and the obsession, I'm telling you because it was my opinion, because I observed these things. You lived them. So what you need to do is tell your story to these prospects. And if they're interested, they will ask you, how'd you do it? And then you can tell them. You have to earn your way to that. And that's what we're talking about here. And when Bill did that, P.S., the kind of thing that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand on edge, the very first person that Bill tried that new approach on was Dr. Bob. Is it odd or is it God? Okay, let's wrap it up. We'll have a couple of minutes for questions or what have you. Let me turn the recording off.